New Year's Eve was supposed to be clean. A reset. That was the lie I kept repeating to myself as I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, fixing the same loose strand of hair for the third time. I told myself this night was about closure, about stepping into the next year lighter than the last. I had no idea my sister had already planned to crush me in front of everyone I loved. The party was her idea. Of course it was. She had framed it as a family-first celebration, small, elegant, meaningful. Just close friends, relatives, a countdown, champagne, and speeches about gratitude. She even insisted I come early to help decorate, which I mistook for an olive branch. We hadn't been close in months, ever since I'd started rebuilding my life after my breakup. I thought maybe the new year softened her. I was wrong. My ex, Daniel, wasn't just someone I dated. He was the person I'd planned a future with. 2 years, shared keys, shared dreams, shared silence at the end when everything collapsed. The breakup had been public enough, friends choosing sides, whispers at gatherings, but I had finally reached a place where his name didn't make my chest tighten. That night, I wasn't expecting to see him again. Especially not there. The house glowed with warm lights and gold ribbons. Music floated through the rooms, laughter bouncing off the walls. My sister moved through the crowd like a perfect host, smiling, touching arms, controlling the energy. When she saw me, she kissed my cheek and said, "Tonight is about new beginnings." I believed her. At first, I was pouring myself a drink when the front door opened again. A burst of cold air rushed in, followed by a familiar laugh, low, confident, unmistakable. My hand froze around the glass. I didn't have to turn around to know who it was. My body recognized him before my mind caught up. When I did turn, our eyes met. Daniel stood there, dressed too well, like he'd planned this. Like he'd practiced that calm, apologetic smile. For a split second, the room disappeared, replaced by memories I had spent months burying. Then reality snapped back, sharper than before. I looked at my sister.
She was watching me.
Not with surprise. Not with confusion. With satisfaction. She walked over, placing a hand lightly on Daniel's arm, and said, loud enough for people nearby to hear, "Oh, you two know each other already." I thought it would be good for everyone to start the year with honesty.
Honesty.
The word tasted bitter. My stomach dropped as faces turned toward us, curiosity lighting up the room. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't thoughtless. This was deliberate. I pulled her aside, my voice shaking despite my effort to stay calm. "Why is he here?" She tilted her head, her smile never fading. "It's a party. I can invite whoever I want. You don't still have feelings, do you? That would be awkward." In that moment, I realized something terrifying. This night wasn't meant to help me move on. It was designed to reopen every wound I had stitched shut in private. And if my sister had gone this far, inviting the one person who could unravel me, then this party was only the beginning. Midnight was still hours away, and whatever she was planning next would hurt much more than seeing my ex walk through that door. I considered leaving. For a full minute, I stood near the staircase, coat in hand, telling myself that walking out would be the strongest thing I could do.
No explanations. No scenes.
Just dignity. But then I saw the way my sister leaned closer to Daniel, laughing too loudly, guiding him deeper into the room like a prized guest. And something stubborn anchored me in place. If this was a test, I wouldn't fail it by running. I put my coat back down and took a slow breath. The music shifted to something louder, more celebratory. People clinked glasses. The countdown decorations glittered like they were mocking me. I reminded myself that I owed no one comfort, especially not my sister. Daniel approached me about 10 minutes later. "Hey," he said, hands tucked into his pockets, voice soft in that practiced way that once fooled me into forgiving everything. "I didn't know you'd be here." I almost laughed. The audacity of pretending this wasn't orchestrated. "It's my family's house," I replied evenly. "Where else would I be?" He nodded, glancing around as if the walls themselves might be listening. "Your sister invited me. She said it would help clear the air. Start the year right." There it was again. That phrase.
Start the year right.
I looked past him, straight at my sister across the room. She raised her glass slightly, like we were sharing a private joke. You should leave, I said to Daniel, my voice low. This isn't appropriate. His expression shifted. Hurt, confusion, maybe even guilt. Or maybe I was giving him too much credit. I think we owe people the truth, he said. There's been a lot of misunderstanding. People. Plural. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about closure between us. This was about an audience. Before I could respond, my sister appeared at Daniel's side again, linking her arm through his. There you both are, she said brightly. I was just telling everyone how brave it is when people face their past instead of hiding from it. A small circle formed around us. Not obvious enough to be rude, but close enough to listen. My sister thrived in moments like this, controlled chaos, subtle cruelty disguised as concern. She turned to me. You don't mind if Daniel stays, right? I mean, it wouldn't be fair to make him leave after everything he went through. Everything he went through. The narrative was already shifting. I could feel it, like the ground moving under my feet. I was being positioned as the unreasonable one, the bitter ex, the problem that needed managing. I forced a smile. I didn't invite him. You did. She sighed dramatically.
See?
This is what I mean. You're still angry. And it's New Year's. Don't you want to let go? The circle leaned in. A few nods. Sympathy, not for me. Daniel cleared his throat. I never cheated, he said suddenly. I just want people to know that. The room went quiet. My chest tightened. That lie had followed me for months. A rumor my sister had helped spread under the guise of concern. I looked at her, and for the briefest second, her mask slipped. Just enough for me to see the intent. This was it. Phase 1 of her plan. Rewrite history publicly, corner me emotionally, make me react. But I didn't. I met Daniel's eyes calmly. That's interesting, I said. Because I never said you cheated. The silence deepened. My sister laughed too quickly. Oh, come on. Let's not do this now. We have a countdown to prepare for. She tried to steer the group away, but the damage was done. People were watching me differently now. Assessing. Judging. Waiting to see if I'd break. I realized then that my sister didn't just want to hurt me. She wanted to humiliate me, slowly, strategically in stages, before midnight struck. And if I wasn't careful, she would succeed. The party kept moving, but I felt frozen inside it, like a figure trapped behind glass. Conversations resumed in half-tones. Laughter returned, but it sounded forced, rehearsed. Every time I caught someone's eye, they looked away too quickly, as if they'd already formed an opinion and didn't want to admit it. My sister stayed busy. Too busy. She floated from group to group, whispering, smiling, planting seeds. I watched her the way you watch a magician's hands, knowing the trick was happening somewhere, just not yet sure how. Daniel didn't leave. Instead, he became comfortable. He stood near the kitchen island, talking to my cousins, telling stories that carefully edited me out of his life. He painted himself as patient, misunderstood, someone who had tried his best. Every so often, he glanced at me, like he was checking whether I'd interrupt. I didn't. Not yet. I moved toward the balcony, needing air. The cold night hit my face, sharp and grounding. Fireworks popped faintly in the distance, early celebration somewhere else. I gripped the railing and reminded myself of what I'd survived already. This night would not define me unless I let it. The balcony door slid open behind me. You look like you're about to disappear, my sister said. I didn't turn around. That was the plan, remember? New beginnings. She stepped beside me, wrapping her shawl tighter around herself. You're being dramatic. I finally faced her. Why are you doing this? She studied me, expression unreadable. Doing what? Inviting him. Pushing this narrative. Making me the villain. She smiled, slow and deliberate. I'm not making you anything. I'm just letting people see the truth. My truth or yours? She leaned closer. You always want to control how people see you. I'm just balancing the scales. The words hit harder than I expected. balance. Like this was justice in her mind, not cruelty. Before I could respond, she added casually, "By the way, I told Daniel he could speak during the toast." My breath caught. What toast? She glanced at her phone. The midnight one. Everyone's sharing something meaningful.
Growth.
Forgiveness. That kind of thing. My heart started pounding. A public microphone. A captive audience. A man who had already proven he'd rewrite history if it benefited him. "You can't be serious," I said. She shrugged. "It'll be healing. For everyone." Then she turned and went back inside, leaving me alone with the cold and the realization that this night had an endpoint, and it was aimed directly at me. Inside, the lights dimmed slightly as more guests arrived. Someone handed out champagne flutes. The TV was switched to the countdown channel, muted for now. The energy shifted from casual to anticipatory. Daniel approached me again, this time with confidence. "I hope you're okay," he said. "I don't want a night to be hard for you." I looked at him closely. Really looked. The careful phrasing. The controlled tone. The performance. "Then don't speak," I said quietly. He hesitated. Just a fraction. "I think it's important." "For who?" He didn't answer. That was when I understood something crucial. My sister and Daniel weren't just aligned for convenience. They needed each other. She needed his voice to validate her version of events. He needed her platform to clean his image. And I was the cost. The countdown clock reappeared on the screen. 30 minutes to midnight. 30 minutes before my sister planned to turn my pain into a spectacle and call it closure. With 20 minutes left to midnight, my sister tapped her glass with a spoon. The sharp clink cut through the room like a warning bell. Conversations faded. Everyone turned toward her, instinctively giving her the floor. She stood near the fireplace, perfectly framed by warm light and decorations, the image of grace and authority. "Before we count down," she said, smiling, "I thought it would be nice if a few people shared something meaningful from the past year."
Growth.
Forgiveness. Truth.
Truth.
Again. My name wasn't spoken, but I felt it hovering in the air. She gestured to Daniel. "Why don't you start?" A few surprised murmurs rippled through the room. Daniel stepped forward, accepted the microphone, and cleared his throat. He looked nervous, convincing enough to draw sympathy. "This year taught me how easy it is for misunderstandings to destroy something good," he began. "I learned that silence can be twisted into guilt, and that sometimes people choose a story that makes them feel better, even if it hurts someone else." I felt heat rise in my face. My hands clenched at my sides. I scanned the room. Some people frowned thoughtfully. Others nodded. No one interrupted him. He continued, voice steady. "I lost someone I cared about because I was painted as something I'm not. And tonight, I just want to say I forgive her." Forgive. The word landed like a slap. A few people glanced at me openly now.
Nos jam. No hesitación.
My sister stood just behind Daniel, one hand resting over her heart, eyes glossy, with what looked like emotion. I realized then that she wasn't just hosting this moment. She was directing it. Daniel finished to polite applause.
Not loud, but enough.
Enough to validate him. My sister stepped forward. "Thank you for your honesty," she said warmly. Then she turned toward me. "Do you want to say something?" The room went silent again. This was the trap. If I spoke emotionally, I'd look unstable. If I stayed quiet, I'd look guilty. She had designed it perfectly. I took a breath. Slow. Measured. "I didn't plan to speak," I said calmly, "because I didn't come here to rewrite the past." My sister's smile tightened. "I came to celebrate the new year with my family," I continued. "But since my life has become a topic tonight, I'll say this. Forgiveness doesn't mean shifting blame. And healing doesn't require a performance." A few heads turned. The mood shifted just slightly. Daniel opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. "I'm not finished." That surprised everyone, including me. "There are two sides to every story," I said. "And then there's the truth." I didn't spread rumors. I didn't seek sympathy. I walked away quietly. If that silence was used against me, That says more about the people who needed an audience than the person who needed peace. The room was very still now. My sister laughed lightly. This is getting heavy. Let's not bring negativity into the new year. Negativity. As if she hadn't orchestrated every second. I handed the microphone back without another word and stepped away. My heart was racing, but my voice hadn't shaken. That mattered. Whispers started almost immediately. Not all in my favor, but not all against me either. The perfect narrative she'd planned was cracking. The countdown clock flashed again. 10 minutes. My sister caught my arm as I passed her. Her nails dug in just enough to hurt. You think you won something? She whispered. I met her eyes.
No.
I think you showed everyone who you are. Her smile vanished. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't over. She hadn't played her final card yet. She never did it before midnight. 5 minutes before midnight, my sister made her move. She didn't announce it. She didn't need to. She simply handed her phone to my aunt, someone known for speaking without a filter, and whispered something that made her eyes widen. Within seconds, the energy in the room shifted again, sharper this time. People began checking their phones, murmuring, looking at me, and then away. My pulse spiked. I pulled one of my cousins aside. What's going on? She hesitated, then showed me her screen. A message was circulating in the family group chat. Screenshots. Old ones. Out of context. Messages between Daniel and me from the final weeks of our relationship. Selectively cropped. Words removed. Pauses erased. In my sister's version, I looked desperate. Manipulative. Unstable. I felt sick. She had saved them. Or worse, she had asked him for them. Before I could react, my sister raised her glass again. I think we should all be honest as we enter the new year, she said smoothly. Secrets don't belong in fresh beginnings. She gestured toward the phone in her hand. I didn't want to do this, but people deserve clarity. That lie almost made me laugh. You shared private messages? I said, my voice louder than I intended. She met my gaze calmly, only to defend someone who's been unfairly blamed. Defend. Always the hero in her own story. I never gave you permission, I said. You lost the right to control the narrative when you refused to explain yourself, she replied. Silence invites interpretation. That sentence told me everything. She wasn't punishing me for something I did. She was punishing me for not performing pain the way she wanted. Daniel stepped forward. I didn't want those shared, he said weakly, though he didn't look surprised. I turned to him. But you let her. He looked away. That was the confirmation I needed. I raised my voice, not in anger, but in clarity. Those messages are incomplete. Anyone who wants context can ask me directly. Anyone who prefers gossip can keep scrolling. A pause. Then my uncle spoke up. Why would you share private conversations at a party? He asked my sister. She blinked. Just once. I was protecting. From what? He interrupted. Embarrassing your own sister? Others joined in. Questions I hadn't expected. Doubts she hadn't planned for. The room fractured into quiet conversations. The certainty she'd tried to manufacture dissolved into confusion. The countdown began.
10, 9.
My sister's face hardened. She hadn't expected resistance. She hadn't expected me to stay standing.
8, 7.
She leaned toward me, her voice low and venomous. You always ruin everything.
6, 5.
I met her gaze steadily.
No.
You just can't control me anymore.
4,
3. Fireworks exploded on the screen.
2, 1.
Cheers erupted. Glasses clinked. The new year arrived in noise and light. And in the middle of it all, my sister stood frozen, her perfect moment shattered, her plan exposed. But I knew her well enough to understand one thing. She wouldn't forgive this. And she wouldn't forget it. The celebration unraveled quickly after midnight. The cheers faded into awkward smiles, then into small, fractured groups speaking in hushed voices. What should have been a joyful moment lingered instead as discomfort, thick and unavoidable. My sister retreated to the kitchen, surrounded by only those still loyal enough to pretend nothing had happened.
I stayed where I was.
For the first time that night, I didn't feel the need to escape. People began approaching me quietly. Not apologies, at least not yet, but questions. Careful ones. Are you okay? That shouldn't have happened. I didn't know the messages were shared without consent. Each sentence chipped away at the image my sister had tried to cement. Daniel avoided me completely. I saw him near the coat rack, scrolling through his phone, his confidence gone. Whatever story he'd expected to solidify tonight had slipped out of his control. Without my sister guiding the narrative, he had nothing solid to stand on. My mother came to me last. Her expression was tired, conflicted. "Why didn't you tell us things were this bad?" she asked. I answered honestly. Because every time I did before, it turned into something else. I chose peace. She nodded slowly, as if understanding something for the first time. Across the room, my sister watched us. Her jaw was tight. When my mother finally walked away, she approached me, her voice shaking, not with emotion, but with fury. "You embarrass me," she said. I laughed softly. Not cruelly, just tired. "You embarrassed yourself."
She leaned in.
"You think people believe you now?" "I think they see enough to doubt you," I replied. "And that scares you." Her eyes flashed. "You've always been jealous of me." The accusation was almost laughable. "No," I said. "I've always been afraid of you." That stopped her. Afraid of her ability to twist situations. Afraid of how easily she could hurt people and call it love. Saying it out loud lifted a weight I hadn't realized I was still carrying. Guests began leaving earlier than planned. Hugs were brief. Goodbyes awkward. The party she'd crafted so carefully ended not with warmth, but with silence. I gathered my coat. As I headed for the door, Daniel finally spoke. "I never meant for this to go so far." I looked at him one last time. "Intent doesn't erase impact," I said. "You chose comfort over truth." He didn't follow me. Outside, the night was calm. Fireworks echoed distantly, already fading. The cold air felt clean, like a reset I hadn't been allowed inside. Behind me, the door closed. For years, my sister had controlled how my story was told, to family, to friends, to anyone who listened. Tonight, for the first time, she failed. And I understood something essential as I walked away into the new year. Surviving her wasn't about winning arguments or proving innocence. It was about refusing to play the role she wrote for me. There was only one part left to this story. The part where I decided what came next. The morning after New Year's arrived quietly. No music.
No countdown.
Just pale light slipping through my curtains and a phone buzzing with missed messages. I didn't check them right away. For once, I let myself breathe before facing the consequences of telling the truth. When I finally did look, the messages were divided cleanly in two. Some were short and careful. "Hope you got home safe." That was uncomfortable. Others were longer. Apologies. Admissions. People acknowledging they had believed things about me without asking. I read them without anger. Accountability, even delayed, mattered. My sister's name was absent. That silence said more than any argument ever could. By afternoon, my mother came over. She didn't lecture. She didn't defend. She sat across from me at the table and said, "I should have stopped this years ago." It wasn't a full apology, but it was a beginning. "She's angry," my mother added quietly. "I know," I said. "What will you do?" The question had followed me all night. For the first time, the answer felt clear. I'm not going to fight her anymore. And I'm not going to explain myself to people who enjoy misunderstanding me. My mother nodded, eyes heavy. That may mean distance. I'm okay with that. Later that day, I blocked Daniel's number.
No announcement.
No final message. Just an end. Closure didn't need a conversation. It needed a boundary. As for my sister, she finally reached out that evening. A single message. "You made me look like a monster." I stared at it for a long time before replying. "I didn't make you anything. I just stopped covering for you." She never responded. Weeks passed. Family gatherings became smaller, quieter. Some people took her side. Some took mine. Most stayed neutral. The chaos she thrived on couldn't survive without my participation. And something unexpected happened. Without constantly defending myself, I had energy. Without anticipating betrayal, I slept better. Without fearing public humiliation, I spoke more freely. I started the year not repaired, but free. One evening, as I packed away the last of the holiday decorations, I realized something important. New Year's night hadn't broken me. It had exposed the truth.
My sister wanted control.
Daniel wanted absolution. And I had wanted peace. Only one of those was honest. The new year didn't begin with fireworks for me. It began with clarity. With the understanding that family doesn't get unlimited access to your life just because you share blood. Love without respect is just another form of harm.
I didn't lose a sister that night.
I lost an illusion. And in its place, I gained something far more powerful. My voice, my boundaries, and a future no one else could rewrite.